All right, so today we're going to start our unit that we talked about on Tuesday when you guys were in class. And we talked about the idea of an introduction to academic, or what we sometimes call formal writing. And this is different than the way you have probably written in middle school, where it tends to be, not always, but a lot, of more sort of personal responses to things. When we're talking about academic writing, there's one format that we want you to get really familiar with, and we're going to play with it as you go throughout high school, but you need to know the basics first. And that's what we're going to start with today. We call it a 3-part essay, or sometimes people will just say a basic essay format. They're all talking about the same thing. So we're going to go through these. Feel free if I'm going too fast or things to pause the video so you can get things written down if you need to. And we'll go ahead and get started. So the first question people usually ask is the most obvious. What is it? So 3-part essay format is the basic organization system that you're going to use for writing academic papers. And academic papers, if you write about a novel in class, or if you write a research paper, or if you go into history and you need to do something like your FRQs that you do in AP-Geo, those sorts of things are going to use this format. You use it because it'll help you keep your ideas really clear. And there are 3 parts to it. These probably sound really familiar. You have an introduction, a body, and your body could be 1 paragraph, it could be 15. It depends on how long and how complicated your topic is. And then obviously you have a conclusion. Pretty much anything you write in any class is going to have these 3 parts in it. The next question that people ask is, why do I have to do this? It's not just to torture you. First of all, is it helps keep your ideas organized. The more complicated the idea is that you're talking about, the more important it is that you have a really good organization system. So that readers, because remember, you're always writing for someone, but so that readers can follow your ideas really easily. It also helps you make sure that your ideas build on each other and that they follow and flow together in a way that makes sense. So let's look at the 3 parts, and we will start, of course, with the introduction, since that comes first. The introduction also has 3 different sections to it. Your first thing in your introduction, the first thing people see in your paper is your attention device. Sometimes in middle school you might have called this like an attention grabber, a hook, sometimes they call it. We use the term attention device. You'll hear that throughout the time you're here at Elk River High School. And the attention device is exactly what it sounds like. It is something that makes your readers want to know more. It gets their attention in some way. The part that's important is that it also needs to set up the main topic of your paper. So your attention device needs to have something to do with what it is you're going to write about. So it can't be totally random. I had a student one time who wanted to start with a random fact about penguins, but their paper was about Romeo and Juliet and didn't really make sense. So it also needs to get us thinking and sort of excited about what it is you're going to say in the rest of your paper. Once you've done your attention device, we move to something called the link. And this is probably a term you maybe haven't heard before. Your link is going to tie the first part of your introduction to the second part of the third part of your introduction. Your link is also going to give us any background information we might need. So if you're writing about a book, you're going to tell us the author or the title of the book, or maybe introduce characters. It's where you get out all that stuff that you need to say, but that you might not want to spend time on in the body of your paragraphs. And obviously we said it ties your attention device to your thesis statement. So it takes that really, really big idea that you had here in your attention device, where it's really broad, and it's going to help narrow it down into your thesis statement, which is the most important part of your whole paper. If you are taking notes, I highly recommend you highlight this, star it, underline it, put flashing lights on it if you can, whatever you need to do to remember that your thesis is the single most important part of your whole paper. Your thesis is what is going to set up your main argument, the thing you're going to say in the paper. everything else that follows it is trying to prove that your thesis statement is true. Your thesis has 3 characteristics. You should notice right now a theme of 3s. So there's 3 things your thesis needs to be in order for it to be a really good or workable thesis. The first thing that you need is that your thesis needs to be specific. That means it needs to have only one topic, and it needs to have a topic that's small enough that I can write about it in the space that I have. So I probably shouldn't write a thesis like Harry Potter is the best thing that ever happened to the world. Because while we might know that that's true, that would be a huge paper to write. I would have to look at every good thing that ever happened in the world and then prove that Harry Potter was better. And while I'm fairly sure that I could do such a thing, my paper would be ridiculously long, and who wants to read that? So it's really important that you narrow your topic down. If I really wanted to write out that Harry Potter was amazing, my thesis could be Harry Potter is an important addition to children's literature in the 20th century. That's fancy sounding, but it's a little bit more specific. Now I have something, I'm just looking at children's literature, I'm just looking at a certain time period, and I'm looking at one book. So that makes it a lot easier, and my paper is going to be a little bit shorter and easier to write. The second characteristic of a good thesis is that it needs to be argumentative. And this part might be different from things you've heard in the past. Argumentative doesn't mean that it has to be a super strong opinion, but it needs to represent your take on something, your ideas. It needs to be something that not everyone would think automatically, and that other people might have different interpretations, different opinions, different explanations for. People need to be able to disagree with it. If my thesis is the sky is blue, there's not really much to say about it, right? Like, I'm going to take you guys all outside at noon on a sunny day, and I'm going to point at the sky and I'll be like, look, blue. Done. What on earth am I going to write in a paper? And the last thing is that your paper or your thesis needs to be defendable. So in other words, you need to actually be able to back it up. And you need to back it up with evidence from the outside world. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next section. But if I were to say my thesis was the sky is orange all the time, well, you guys could take me outside at noon on a sunny day and say, look, not orange. What on earth am I going to put in my paper? Because we know it's not true. So you always need to make sure that there's enough in the background that can support your argument. These 3 things then make up your basic introduction. So then we move to the next part, which is the body paragraph. So your body paragraph starts to look a little bit more familiar. If you've done paragraph writing before, you've probably seen this. Your first part is the topic sentence, sort of like a mini thesis, right? Your topic sentence is, what are you going to prove in this paragraph? Later on next week, it'll be next Wednesday, we'll start to talk about how your topic sentences and your paragraph relates to your thesis statement. But for now, you just need to know it sets the tone for your paragraph. Your setup, or what we call your reasoning, comes next. This part's a little confusing to people because it works a little bit like your link in that it's tying 2 sections of your paper together. So it's going to maybe explain your topic sentence a little bit more, so why you think something, and it's going to get us ready for the next section, which is your evidence. Your evidence, for the purpose of this class this year, we'll be talking about quotes, meaning you are taking something from another source to use as an expert that backs you up, and you're going to put it in your paper. That means, since it's someone else's work, you need to cite it. And there's how you cite it here. You can see author, page number. So it would look like this. We'll practice that more, but hopefully that looks familiar to you from last year. Then you have your analysis. After your thesis, your analysis is the most important part of your paper. And it's going to be the longest part of your paper. So maybe this one you still want to highlight and put stars around, but you can just leave the flashing lights off. Your analysis is where you explain what your evidence means. And it's really important that you don't just summarize, but that you tell me what it means and why it's important. It's your take on the evidence. This is where you're going to make the main argument of your actual paper. The last part of a body paragraph is your concluding sentence. Your concluding sentence feels a little bit like a restatement of your topic sentence. You're reminding us what you proved in the paragraph. And we'll talk throughout the semester why that repetition is really helpful in paper. These three parts, your setup and reasoning, your evidence, and your analysis. One thing you should write down in your notes is that these will repeat. So what you're actually going to have is topic sentence, setup, evidence, analysis, and then you're going to go back up here and you have another setup, another evidence, and another analysis. Make sure you have in your notes that in any body paragraph you write, you should have at least 2 pieces of evidence. Towards the end of the year, you'll have more than that, but we're going to start with 2 just to get used to it. Once you've done this the second time, then you move on to that concluding sentence. If you're confused about that, we can clarify that in class. The last part of your paper then is your conclusion. So your conclusion, like your introduction, has 3 sections to it. And this, at least the first 2, are pretty easy. The first one is you're going to restate your thesis. You're going to take that idea from your introduction and you're going to say it in completely new ways to remind your reader. The reason this is helpful is because our brains are wired to see patterns. And one of the first patterns we see, or that we learn as kids, is a circle. So when we see this idea repeated, our brain thinks it's filled a circle, that it's come back to where it started in. And that triggers in our brain this idea that we're almost done, which is exactly what you want in your conclusion. So you restate your thesis, make sure you say it in a new way, of course. Then you give us a really brief summary of what you talked about. And when we say brief, we mean it. You're only talking about your main points, and max, your summary should be 2 sentences. No more than that. We read the whole paper. All we need is a quick reminder. We don't need an in-depth study to happen over again. And then your last section is your significance. This is going to be your longest section because your restatement of your thesis and your summary are probably only going to be 2 full sentences. Your significance is going to be the rest of it. And your significance is where you show us why your topic matters, or maybe how it affects people now in the real world. So if I read a paper about Harry Potter being important to children's literature, and I'm an adult, you would maybe want to explain to me why Harry Potter affects my life. How does it being a part of literature matter to me now? If I write a paper about To Kill a Mockingbird, I might talk about the fact that a lot of the issues I see in To Kill a Mockingbird are still happening in our world today. But you do something in this section that gives us a sense that what we just read was important. You always want to end strong. You want your reader to put your paper down feeling like they just read something that mattered. It's sort of that mic drop moment, right? You remind them that, hey, not only was this an awesome paper, but it's an important one too. So all of these 3 parts together will make up your basic essay format. And over the next few days, we will start practicing with this. Make sure that if you have any questions on this, you go ahead and let me know. But also remember, this was just a really quick introduction. I don't expect you to completely understand how to do all of this stuff yet. Anything that you might have, we'll probably cover over the next few days. So, thank you. Again, keep those questions in mind in case you need them, and have a really good weekend.